Hi, I'm Jimmy Aluria with 3A Automotive and Diesel Repair. We get a lot of questions about caring for high mileage vehicles. So today I'm going to answer some of the most common questions about caring for a high mileage vehicle, as well as making sure that it's reliable as those miles add up. So first of all, what qualifies as a high mileage vehicle? Well, I would say that a high mileage vehicle today is somewhere in the range of 100,000 to up to 300,000 miles. So high mileage really depends on the type of car that it is, because there's some vehicles that were meant to go 200,000 or 300,000 miles. And then there's other vehicles that really the manufacturer intends for them to last about 100,000 miles, and then they want you to throw them away and come get a new one. But there are also a lot of vehicles that are made to drive 200,000 to 300,000 miles without any problem, as long as they're properly maintained. What maintenance should high mileage vehicles receive more often? Really, the maintenance that a high mileage vehicle should receive more often than a newer vehicle is probably a professionally done oil change and inspection. The maintenance behind that will be really what is recommended. So if you have professional eyes looking at the vehicle, let's say every 3,000 to 5,000 miles through an oil change, that technician or that shop is going to be able to recommend the things that they're going to make that vehicle reliable, safe, and keep it on the road a long time. So the maintenance that you need for a high mileage vehicle really depends on what the inspection says every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. A professional technician is going to check, what does the oil look like? What do the filters look like? The air filter? What do the other fluids look like? Your transmission has fluid. Your power steering has fluid. Your engine coolant is a fluid. Those are the types of things that every 3,000 to 5,000 miles you want a professional looking over to see what the vehicle needs. How can I make my high mileage engine last longer? The best way that you can make a high mileage engine last longer is through proper oil changes. That's the easiest way. I mean, when you're talking about just the engine itself, regular oil changes with a quality filter is going to ensure that that engine stays nice and lubricated, the fluid inside of it's clean, and it's running as efficient as it possibly can. The other benefit to doing regular oil changes on those intervals, and we recommend every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, sometimes 7,000 miles, but as you get up in mileage, you want to go more closer to about 3,000 to 5,000 miles. But if you have a professional do those oil changes, they're also going to be keeping an eye on the other things that are tied to the engine. Your transmission, your engine coolant, your filters, all those things are going to be inspected. As the vehicle ages, the more often you get it inspected, the quicker you can get onto something that could cause a problem later on. So we always recommend doing the professional oil change every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, because then you're going to get some professional eyes on the vehicle and be able to catch things before they become catastrophic. What fluids are especially important to check on high mileage cars? The fluids that you should check and that are really important to keep an eye on high mileage vehicles is definitely anything on the vehicle. All the fluids are important. They have their purpose. Obviously the engine oil, making sure that it's up to the proper level and that it's clean, meaning that it's had an oil change every 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 miles, depending on the type of vehicle it is. The transmission fluid, very important to make sure that the transmission has clean fluid in it and it's serviced regularly. Getting all that debris, it gets hot, there's the debris inside of the transmission that needs to be cleaned out by changing the fluid. That's really important, making sure the transmission has fresh fluid and a fresh filter. The power steering fluid is really important. Power steering fluid is something that most people don't think about changing, but just like any other moving component in the vehicle, it's getting hot, it's moving gears, it's getting debris inside of the fluid that you want to change out at the proper service interval. And then the engine coolant. The engine coolant obviously keeps the engine operating at the proper temperature. If it is not the right mixture in there, a lot of times it won't be keeping the vehicle as cool as it should. In colder climates, it won't help the engine operate at the proper temperature. So all of those fluids are really important to keep an eye on as the vehicle ages, especially as you get above 100,000, 200,000 miles. We got to keep an eye on those fluids all the time. What are common problems older vehicles start to develop? The most common problems that older vehicles start to develop are sometimes leaks. the seals, the rubber seals, the gaskets and things like that, they start to seep out fluids. So that might be a water pump, or it might be some sort of an engine oil leak or a transmission leak. As the vehicle gets older, you'll start seeing seeps, what we call a seep. You can see it's collecting dust around it, but it's not dripping on the driveway. When it gets to a leak stage, that's where we're actually losing probably a sizable amount of fluid every 1,000 miles or so, and that's when we want to start looking at fixing those things. But the older vehicles, they start getting a little seeps and leaks, and those are the things that you want to stay on top of, because if the fluids get low, that's actually when you cause damage more than just the mileage. Do high mileage cars need thicker or special oil? Higher mileage cars don't necessarily need thicker or different special oils. Most of the vehicles today operate with a certain type of oil. It's got to be very specific. A lot of problems can occur in a vehicle when the improper oil is put in the vehicle. So just because it has more mileage doesn't mean that we want to change the type of oil. Really what we want to do is probably keep that oil changed more often and keep professional eyes on it more often than trying to remedy something with a thicker oil or some other specialty kind of snake oil that really isn't going to do anything to help the engine last longer. On the other hand, there are certain oil additives that can help lubricate the vehicle a little bit better. It doesn't mean that we're changing the type of oil in there, but there are certain additives that you can put into the oils that will help that vehicle last longer. How often should belts, hoses, and gaskets be inspected? Your belts, your hoses, your gaskets, those should be inspected every 3,000 to 5,000 miles when you get an oil change. One of the reasons why I don't recommend people go to a quick lube for an oil change, or even sometimes doing their oil change themselves, is because they miss the aspect of the full vehicle inspection, especially on a higher mileage vehicle. So the inspection would include looking at all the rubber material on the vehicle, your tires, your belts, your hoses. Your gaskets you're not really going to inspect, but what the technician is going to be looking for is any sort of seepage or leak of any type of fluid that would tell us that a gasket could be going bad. So that should be inspected every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, depends on how much you drive the vehicle. Why do older engines start burning more oil? Older engines do sometimes burn more oil, and that is just because the seals inside of the engine aren't as tight as they used to be. The engine oil is not there to be burned, it's there to lubricate. And as those seals inside of the engine get worn down, then some of that oil that's there to lubricate ends up seeping into where the gasoline gets burned, and you will start burning a little bit of oil over time. There's some vehicles that even with under 100,000 miles burn a little bit of oil. So it's not uncommon for engines to burn a little bit of oil. Don't be afraid of a vehicle that has high miles on it, that if it's burning a little bit of oil. The key is making sure that you're keeping it full of oil so that it doesn't do any damage because of lack of oil. How does driving style affect a high mileage vehicle? Well, driving style can affect a high mileage vehicle quite a bit. The older the vehicle gets, the more temperamental it's going to be. I wouldn't recommend, if you're a really aggressive driver, to be driving a car with 200,000 to 300,000 miles on it. You got to take care of these things. You don't want to be racing from light to light and braking really hard on a really high mileage vehicle, because again, it's got more time on it and there's more things that could break. So if you're driving a high mileage vehicle, I recommend respect it. What warning signs should high mileage owners never ignore? When you're driving a high mileage vehicle, a couple of warnings that you don't want to ignore is definitely things like the check engine light. If the vehicle's got a lot of miles on it and the check engine light comes on, don't ignore that, because maybe it's something very simple. Leaving the gas cap too loose can cause the check engine light to come on. Now that's not a big deal. It's not going to leave you stranded. There's going to be no problem with that. But if you ignore that light and something else happens that could leave you stranded or could be a serious problem, you won't know that the light is trying to come on and warn you to bring it to a repair shop, because that other light was covering up a more severe light. So lights are really important. Your gauges are really important. As the vehicle gets older, you want to keep an eye on those things. You want to keep an eye on the temperature gauge. You want to keep an eye on the battery light, the check engine light. All of those things are really important to keep your eye on an older vehicle. And when something does pop up, get it inspected. It may not be anything big, but don't guess. Bring it into a professional, have them hook up the scanner or look it over to make sure that it's nothing severe, and then get that addressed as soon as you can. Other warning signs that people who are driving high mileage vehicles shouldn't ignore are leaks. As a vehicle gets older, it will spring different types of leaks. The faster you get on top of those leaks and get those addressed, the longer that vehicle is going to last. Is it worth repairing or maintaining a high mileage car long term? It is definitely worth the investment to repair and maintain a high mileage vehicle over the long term. Look, the average vehicle cost right now is about $50,000, $800 a month. People are having to finance these new vehicles because they're so expensive about 6 years at $800 a month on average. So yes, absolutely it's worth putting money into an older vehicle. These vehicles will last 200,000 to 300,000 miles with proper maintenance. And just because a transmission goes out on a car, that transmission maybe costs you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to replace. To replace that same vehicle might be $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. So it's definitely worth it to repair and maintain an older vehicle because they will last a lot longer than most people think they will. What preventative services help avoid major repairs later? The preventative services that help avoid major repairs when you're driving a high mileage vehicle are definitely all of the fluids and the filters. You want to do your oil changes every 3, 5, 7,000 miles, depending on the type of vehicle that you have. Even if the manufacturer says you can go 10,000 miles, I would not go that long on an oil change. So make sure you're doing a proper service interval on all the oil changes. The transmission service, that has fluid. Change that out at the proper service interval. Make sure that that filter inside the transmission, if it's serviceable, that it actually is changed when it should be changed. The air filter, the air going into the engine from the environment can be dirty and can cause problems, especially on a higher mileage vehicle. It's very cheap insurance to replace the filters. The fuel filters on some vehicles can be changed. And that, again, is very important. The fuel that's coming from the pump is not necessarily clean, and it gets water inside of the fuel, and that can cause problems inside of the engine. So fluids and filters are the cheapest insurance that you can buy to ensure that you're not going to have major repairs on that vehicle. I hope this video helped you answer some questions about how to maintain and repair a high mileage vehicle. Don't be afraid of a high mileage vehicle. These vehicles can last a long time. If you'd like to talk to us or schedule an appointment, give us a call here at 3A Automotive at 602-997-7978, or just stop by and we can answer your questions and schedule a future appointment if needed. We're here to help you make your vehicles stay reliable, safe, and valuable. I look forward to seeing you.